This is Metatherapy, where we talk about therapy itself. Advice, not diagnosis, just understanding the process so you can use it better. Each episode of Metatherapy is psychoeducation, not therapy. If something resonates, it's meant to be language you can bring back into your own work. So on Monday, we did something unusual. We sat with the inner critic. We tried to meet it instead of fight it. And if you did that practice, maybe something shifted, even just a little. And then maybe you got off the couch, picked up your phone, and thought, I wonder if there's an app for this. That's exactly the question I want to dig into today, because the answer is genuinely more interesting and more complicated than a simple yes or no. And there are now dedicated IFS apps. There are AI chatbots that claim to do parts work. There are people using general AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude to run their own IFS sessions. And there's a growing body of evidence and clinical research on what these tools can and can't actually do. So today, we're going to look at the landscape honestly. What's available, what the research says, where these tools genuinely help, and where they hit a ceiling that a screen just can't get past. So let's get into it. So first, a bit of context about why this question matters. IFS has had a significant cultural movement. NPR did a piece, The Inside Out Framing, No Bad Parts, becoming a bestseller. Parts work language is genuinely moving into mainstream awareness. And with that comes an obvious question. Can technology meet people where they are? As of the most recent counts, there are over 6,000 IFS certified therapists and practitioners in the United States. Meanwhile, the general population is actively searching for parts work support. There is a real access gap, and technology is rushing in to fill it. At the same time, the broader mental health app landscape has a problem. 2025 systematic review of 160 studies found that only 16% of LLM-based mental health chatbot studies had undergone clinical efficacy testing. The technology is outpacing the evidence significantly. And IFS specifically, a particular challenge for digital tools. And here's why. IFS is not a psychoeducation model. It's a relational experiential model. The healing happens in the moment of attunement, when a part feels seen by a self that is genuinely present. That's fundamentally different than the ask of such a thing as like a CBT worksheet or a mood tracking app. A 2025 study from JMIR with mental health clinicians reviewing mental health chatbots found that even the most sophisticated tools produced what researchers called deceptive empathy, language that mimics emotional connection without general comprehension. Clinicians flagged this as something that could actually deter help seeking from human providers over time. So with those caveats firmly in place, let's look at what actually does exist. I'm going to take you through three categories: dedicated IFS apps, AI-guided parts work tools, and general AI platforms. And I'll give you an honest read on each of them. So let's begin with category one, purpose-built IFS apps. And the most complete one out there right now is called Sentur, Sentur. Sentur launched a few years ago and has been iterating actively. It's built explicitly around the IFS framework, not as an inspiration, but as the actual architecture. The app includes guided IFS exercises and meditations, something called parts mapping, where you can visually track and organize your internal system, a self-energy assessment scale, journaling features, and a community component. For someone who's already doing IFS work with a therapist or who has read No Bad Parts and wants a structured place to continue that work between sessions, Sentur is genuinely useful. It functions a lot like what a good clinical handout package would look like if that package were also an app. The caveats of this app, though, are real. First, price. It currently runs at about $55 per year. For many clients, that's a barrier. User reviews from clinicians specifically note that they'd refer more clients if the cost were lower. Second is around complexity. IFS is not a simple framework, and Sentur reflects that. Multiple reviews mention a steep learning curve. One reviewer on Google Play noted that needing 6 onboarding videos to understand an app is itself a signal that something in the UX needs rethinking. The platform is rich. Whether that richness feels empowering or overwhelming depends a lot on where someone is on their IFS journey. And then third, and this one I want you to really hold. Sentur is explicit that it is not therapy. Its own FAQ uses a nice analogy. Can you give yourself a massage? Well, technically, yes. But if you want a real deep tissue massage, you see a massage therapist. The emotional body works the same way. That's a genuinely honest framing. The question is whether all users hear it that way. Sentur is a HIPAA compliant and encrypts user data, which matters for an app where people are doing vulnerable inner work. This is something worth noting because many general mental health apps have significant privacy gaps that clinical reviewers have flagged. So, bottom line on Sentur, it's the most clinically coherent IFS app currently available. It's a good between session tool for motivated clients who already have a foundation. It's not a substitute for the real thing, and it's really not designed to be. So category 2 is AI-guided parts work tools. And this is where things get interesting and also more complicated. There are now several apps that use AI to guide users through actual IFS sessions, not just exercises or journaling prompts, but a conversational AI that asks the questions a practitioner would ask, helps you to locate a part, tracks what you discover, and guides you through the protocol. The IFS Guide app is one of the more polished of these. It includes AI-guided sessions alongside more traditional tools, educational content, guided meditations, parts mapping function, and daily check-ins. User reviews describe moments that feel, in their words, almost magical, genuinely connecting with a part in a way they hadn't expected from a digital tool. Here's a thing I want to name clearly, though, because it's the thing I don't think the apps are naming clearly enough. IFS has a sequenced protocol specifically because of the complexity of the internal system. One of the non-negotiable steps is checking for permission from protectors before approaching an exile. You don't go to the wounded part without the protective parts giving you the green light. An experienced clinician knows to feel for that. They notice when a client's system is overwhelmed. They slow down. They track the window of tolerance in real time. And AI cannot do that. A 2026 Brown University study identified 15 distinct ethical risks in AI mental health chatbots, including mishandling crisis situations, reinforcing harmful beliefs, and offering what researchers called deceptive empathy. The APA issued a formal health advisory in November 2025 that current AI chatbots lack the scientific evidence and necessary regulations to ensure users' safety for mental health use. The sequencing problem is the one I'd flag most specifically for IFS. If a user goes into an AI-guided session and bypasses a protector because they're motivated, because they know what they want to get to, and the AI doesn't catch it, you could get flooded, be traumatized, a destabilizing system that then has no human container. 2025 New York Magazine reported on IFS specifically raising concerns about parts work being used too aggressively, too fast. And while that reporting was focused on clinical malpractice at a treatment center, the underlying dynamic Going deeper than the system is ready for is exactly what the AI guided session is structurally at risk for. It's not a reason to dismiss these tools. It's a reason to be honest about who they're for. Someone with a stable system, some prior IFS experience, and access to a human therapist for anything that gets activated. This can be genuinely valuable. Someone in crisis or new to parts work or dealing with complex trauma, this is probably not the right entry point. The third category we're going to get into today are the general AI tools. You know them as ChatGPT, Claude, and then using them for parts work. This is happening. People are doing it. I've even tried this myself. I want to take it seriously rather than dismiss it. There are actually some things that general AI does reasonably well in this context. If you want to journal about a part in a structured way, a capable AI can ask decent follow-up questions. It can reflect things back. If you ask it to help you map your parts, for instance, it can build a coherent picture. For someone using it as a thinking partner rather than as a therapist, to organize what they're noticing, to get curious on paper before a session, there's some genuine utility here. But here's where things fall apart, and it falls apart in ways that are specifically problematic for IFS. The problem is what I'd call the advice gap. A well-trained IFS practitioner doesn't give advice. They ask questions. They slow down. They wait. General AI tends to do the opposite. It moves toward resolution, toward insight, toward a tidy summation. That's fine for a lot of things, but for IFS, it's exactly wrong. The goal isn't to understand your parts, it's to be with them. Researchers looking at this dynamic put it plainly. It's the difference between I understand your pain and what does the pain want you to know? Those are not the same conversation. 2025 systematic review of 160 AI mental health chatbot studies found that LLM-based systems, which now represent 45% of new studies, by the way, have only undergone clinical efficacy testing in 16% of cases. The technology is moving fast. The evidence is moving slow. The gap between them is where users are currently operating. The second problem is protector blindness. I mentioned this in the last section because it's even more pronounced with general AI. ChatGPT doesn't know what IFS protocol requires. It doesn't know how to check for permission before approaching a vulnerable part. If you're in a blended state and the AI keeps reflecting content from that blended place, you're not getting a corrective experience. You're just getting amplification. Third, there's the dependency risk. AI tools that stimulate emotional connection, and the best of them are getting quite good at this, can create what researchers have flagged as a false therapeutic alliance. Users feel heard, they feel supported, and over time, some portion of them will turn to AI instead of seeking human support, not because the AI is better, but because it's available at 2 a.m. and it never cancels. The APA filed a formal complaint with the FTC in late 2024 specifically about this pattern with children and adolescents. The concern applies across all age groups. So, general AI as an IFS tool, useful in limited, bounded ways. As a thinking partner, a journaling prompt, between session reflection space, genuinely risky as a primary mode of parts work, especially for anyone working with complex trauma. Okay, so who should use what? If you're already in IFS therapy and want structured between session support, Sentur. It is the most coherent, the most clinically grounded, and it's designed for exactly this use case. Bring it up with your therapist. They may actually appreciate not having to build out your whole resource toolkit from scratch. If you have some IFS foundation and want to go deeper on your own, and you have a stable system, an AI-guided app like IFS Guide can be genuinely useful. with the caveat that you stay aware of your own window of tolerance. If something gets activated that doesn't settle, that's a signal to bring it to a human. If you're curious about parts work but haven't started, an app is not your entry point. Go and read the book No Bad Parts. Listen to a podcast. Watch this channel. Find a practitioner. Use technology to understand the framework, not to do the deep work before you have a foundation. And if you're a clinician thinking about recommending these tools to clients, Sentur is the most defensible referral for clients who are stable, motivated, and already have an IFS foundation. For everyone else, especially anyone with complex trauma, be explicit about what these tools can and cannot do. What no app can do, no matter how good, is meet you. Track your nervous system. Notice when you're about to go too fast. Hold the container when something breaks open. That's what a human therapist does. And it's not a small thing. So here's what I take away from all of this. As a therapist and as someone who thinks hard about the gap between knowing and changing, technology is not going to solve the insight behavior gap. If anything, the best of these tools, the AI-guided sessions, the parts mapping apps, can give us the illusion of progress, more parts identified, more language for our internal experience, more conceptual sophistication. And none of that is the same as the moment where a part actually feels seen, where something shifts, where you get out of your head and into your body. And for one quiet moment, the critic loses its grip, not because you argued with it, but because it wasn't alone anymore. That's an experiential event. And experiential events require presence. They require attunement. They require something that a screen, however sophisticated, cannot yet provide. The tools we looked at today exist because there's a real gap. More people need support than there are trained providers to offer it. It's not a small problem, and it's not one that dismissing technology solves. But technology that overpromises, that allows someone with complex trauma to think that they're doing deep parts work when they're actually just generating content about their parts, that's not filling the gap. That's obscuring it. Use these tools, recommend them thoughtfully, and stay clear-eyed about what they actually offer. That's today's Therapy Tech Tuesday on Metatherapy. If Monday's meditation got something moving and today's episode gave you some direction for what to do with it, that's the week working the way it's supposed to. Subscribe if you're not already. Share this with someone who's been asking you about apps for therapy, because this question comes up constantly, and now you have something to send them. My name is Dominic Adori. I'll see you next week.